Many subjects are studied on various levels, right? Consider biology, for example. Molecular biologists study the chemical compounds that make up living things. Cellular biologists study cells, which are made up of many chemical compounds and at the same time are themselves the building blocks of living organisms. Evolutionary biologists study the many varieties of animals and plants and how species evolve and change gradually over the centuries. What about in physics? Again, at various levels. At the most micro, we have the quantum physics. And at the most macro, we have astrophysics. Economics is also studied on various levels. We can study the decisions of individual households and firms, or we can study the interactions of the households and firms in markets for specific goods and services, or we can study the operation of the economy as a whole, which is the sum of the activities of all these decision makers in all these markets. And based on at which level the study is conducted, the field of economics is traditionally divided into two broad subfields: microeconomics and macroeconomics. Microeconomics is at a micro level, at the level of individuals. It is the study of how households and firms make decisions and how they interact in specific markets. Macroeconomics, on the other hand, is at the aggregate level. It is the study of economy-wide phenomena, of the economy as a whole, like the growth rate of a country's total economic output, or the percentage increase in overall prices, which is the inflation rate, or the fraction of the labor force that is looking for work but cannot find a job, the unemployment rate. Macroeconomists design government policies that improve overall or aggregate economic performance. For example, macroeconomists try to identify the best policies for stimulating an economy that is experiencing a sustained period of negative growth, in other words, an economy in recession. During the 2007 to 2009 financial crisis, when GDP growth was plummeting and banks were under stress, the macroeconomists had their hands full. It was their job to explain why the economy was contracting and to recommend policies that would bring it back to equilibrium. The basic issue of study in macroeconomics is this equilibrium at an economy level. Our macroeconomics course will primarily deal with equilibrium and how it is attained. Then disequilibrium and how it happens, and finally, what can be done to correct the disequilibrium and restore equilibrium. These three aspects are the three key aspects of macroeconomic study that we'll be dealing with. Microeconomics and macroeconomics, though they are treated as two separate subtopics, are not really separate areas of study. They're actually very closely intertwined. Because changes in the overall economy arise from the decisions of millions of individuals, it is impossible to understand macroeconomic developments without considering the associated microeconomic decisions. For example, a macroeconomist might study the effect of an income tax cut on the GDP. But to analyze and truly understand this issue, he must consider how the tax cut affects households' decisions about how much to spend on goods and services, and how that translates to changes in the GDP at the aggregate level. Macroeconomics is very important. Economics, when it serves to boost the wealth of nations, as Adam Smith called it, takes people from poverty and misery to health and better living standards. Such economics can change the world. All that is true and important, but such national level or global level issues are the purview of macroeconomics. So, in this first chapter, we will start with our jobs, our choices, and our personal relationships as foundation stones for all subsequent decisions. Saving the world will have to wait until the next course, after we are done with micro first. Microeconomics operates at a micro level. It's a study of how economic agents or actors like individuals, households, firms, and governments make choices, and how those choices affect things like prices, the allocation of resources, and the well-being of other agents. And microeconomics is our first course in economics. In this microeconomics course, we'll have two main heroes: consumers and producers. In our first couple of chapters, we'll study how consumers make decisions and behave in general, and see what consumption patterns arise out of that. In these chapters, you should always be trying to identify yourself with the consumer behaviors being described and see if the behaviors actually make sense in real life as well, especially in your everyday lives. You'll see that consumers have so many tough decisions to make, and we'll follow the consumers around and try to figure out how he or she does it. Will we find some basic rules and theories? Yes, of course. We'll figure out stuff like the theory of consumer behavior and the law of demand through these investigations. After that, we'll see how the other side of the economy, that is producers, behave, and the production patterns that arise from their behaviors. Here, we will uncover the theory of firm behavior and the law of supply. In the rest of the chapters, we'll bring our understanding of these two heroes, consumers and producers, together and see the patterns and results that arise out of their interactions. We will end up with the mighty price mechanism and explore further how it works. Overall, we can say that the vital components of a microeconomic course are 1. The theory of consumer behavior and the law of demand, which deals with how customers maximize their satisfaction, decide what and how much to purchase or consume, and how they respond to prices. 2. The theory of producer behavior and the law of supply, which deals with how producers try to maximize their profits, decide what and how to produce, and how they respond to prices and costs. And 3. The price mechanism or the market mechanism, which deals with how the market prices of goods and services are determined in the market. In this area, we'll also see various types of markets and also some cases of government intervention in market failures, etc. Broadly, our course will follow this outline. There's a lot to study and a lot of fun to be had. So enough introductory chat and motivation about being good economists. Let's begin our study now. And we'll be beginning with the first set of heroes, the end users of economic activity, namely consumers and their behavior in our next chapter.